and business coach for women that are building their businesses. And today I'm joined by my co-event coordinators or team leaders, Allison Profit and Shannon Richardson. We are also joined by our panelists today, Dr. Kathryn Plummer, Becky Lauridsen, and Zach Mercurio, and we're going to hear more from all of them in just a moment. But I just wanted to kick off the event. This is our final day of Thrive Summit sessions, and it has been quite a week. And I hope you've been able to join us for all of these sessions, or for at least some of them that were of interest to you, because I think the value that our panelists have given this week has just been enormous. And so if you missed any of the sessions, they are all recorded and they are available in the Facebook group. And so I wanted to just kick off this morning by telling you today we're discussing mindset and mental health. And when we organized this virtual summit, this was one session that I thought was super important. This is something that's oftentimes uncomfortable for us to talk about, and we think it exposes weakness, but really we're all going through many of the same things, and you're going to learn that today. You're going to learn that you're not alone, that what you're feeling through this whole pandemic is common among all of us. And so we are here for you and here to offer you some inspiration, some tips and tools that you can use to help build the spirit and the mind of a resilient entrepreneur. And so on that note, I encourage you today to have questions, to think of questions. This is not a spectator sport. We are here to interact with you, to answer questions, and to have a discussion. And so we invite any questions. There is a Q&A box that you'll see at the bottom of your screen, and you can click on that and enter your questions. I will be posing them to our panel. And so start thinking of those now. I would love for a question from each one of you. I challenge you to think of something, some way that we can support you today. So with that, I am going to pass the mic to Shannon Richardson. And she is one of our, like I said, one of our leadership team members. And so she's going to say a few words. Shannon.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We hope you and your families are healthy and safe. And I think I speak for Melissa and Allison as well, that for all of you essential business owners and your employees, we want to thank you for being on the front line all these weeks and keeping our economy going. My name again is Shannon Richardson. I'm a financial advisor and partner with the K&R Group of Merrill Lynch and Fort Collins. We are a fiduciary financial planning practice. And if you've been joining our sessions this week, I feel like I've been talking a lot and introducing my business a lot. So I thought today, instead of boring you all, I'm just going to give you 3 quick tips that you can use regardless of market conditions that I think are helpful. So 1, don't try to time the market. We get scared and we hop in and out. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. So it's more about time in the market, not market timing. 2, I talked about this on Monday's session. Don't make emotional decisions. And I think we can agree that's just a good rule in life in general, to try to make sure that you're gathering data, but also that you're leaning on your trusted advisors to act as a countermeasure when you're having a difficult time making a decision, you're feeling emotional about something. And number 3, work with a fiduciary advisor. Many of you are familiar with that term. A fiduciary is just a professional that puts their client's best interests first. There is a fiduciary standard with some designations in my industry. So make sure you work with a fiduciary advisor to create a financial plan, because if you have a plan, you have these contingencies built in when the market does take a downturn like it did and has during the pandemic. So that will help you feel more at peace with what's happening inside your portfolio and your investments. So those would be my 3 tips for you. Before I pass it off to Allison to introduce the moderator, I just wanted to take a moment because of today's panel and what the topic is, just to share some thoughts. And I think we've all experienced just a myriad of emotions these last several weeks. And I remember when this was just a couple weeks in, Allison actually referred me to this article by the Harvard Business Review called that discomfort you're feeling is grief. And I encourage you all to read it. But it was talking about grief at many things that we're grieving, right? Like the loss of normalcy, the fear of economic toil, the loss of human connection. But it also talked about anticipatory grief, which I think is what a lot of us are feeling. And that's the feeling we get when the future seems so uncertain. And collectively, we have all lost this sense of general safety because of this invisible enemy. And I think we recognize how scary this can be and how many are feeling about all the uncertainty, which is why we wanted to end our week with a mindset and mental health session. So what we want to accomplish today is to hopefully provide some sense of calm and optimism. And Simon Sinek said something about optimism recently that I really liked. And he said that optimism is not about being naive or denying reality, but it's about having a fundamental belief that the future is positive, that we will pull through all of this together. And we believe that, and I hope you do too. So with that, I want to pass it over to Allison Prophet to tell us about our event sponsor, Weibo, and she's also going to introduce today's moderator. Miss Allison?
Thank you so much, Shannon, for that, for those tips. And definitely the Harvard Business article was really great. I'll drop a link to that in the chat box shortly. So before I talk about our sponsor and introduce Melissa, I just want to mention my name is Allison Prophet, and my business is Profit Coach. What I do with Profit Coach is I help service-based business owners build, perfect, and manage their sales conversations so that they can increase their profitability. And certainly one of the things that a lot of people have been struggling with is just kind of, do I have sales conversations? Is that a thing that I should do? So the thing that differentiates me in terms of like teaching you how to have sales conversations is actually shifting your attitude around sales. So the mindset work behind that is really important. And so if you are finding yourself struggling about how do I even have sales conversations, I'm not even feeling good in my own right mind, how should I go out and do things in my business? Please feel free to reach out to me. We've got these wonderful speakers today that are gonna probably be addressing some things along those lines. Before I started my business, Profit Coach, I actually worked in human resources for 15 years. And mental health in the workplace was always something that I was really passionate about. So this topic and bringing this as part of what we spoke about in the virtual summit is really important because as small business owners, we don't have an HR person. We don't have an HR department that's looking out for our mental health and wellness in the workplace. So we have to really manage that ourselves. So I'm really hoping that you'll take some great tips and inspiration from today's session and maybe feel a little bit less alone. I do want to say, before I introduce Melissa, a great thank you to our sponsors, the Women Entrepreneur and Business Owners Network, WEBO for short, WEBO Network. I'm actually the managing director for the newly launched Northern Colorado chapter. And so WEBO Network is Colorado's fastest growing professional advisory group for women. We offer masterminding and thought partnering while building community through the shared experience of being a woman business owner. And as I mentioned, the Northern Colorado chapter, I just launched this with the help of Shannon and Melissa, and then one of our other leadership team members, Cindy Skalecki, who is not here with us today, but she is part of our leadership team here as well. We're really excited to continue growing this community and welcome any of the women business owners tuning in here to check us out at the webonetwork.com website. We've got an extensive event calendar of networking and learning events. All of them are virtual at this point. So really, really honored to have WEBO sponsoring this event and allowing us as the Thrive leadership team to have a platform to bring this information to you. We are also offering a 20% off of membership. So the details for that will be emailed out and also in the Facebook group for summit attendees. So with that, I'm really honored to introduce Melissa. Melissa's the brains behind this whole summit. She brought the idea up to Shannon and I, and we thought, let's do it. Even though we only had 3 weeks, we've really pulled together this community of speakers and attendees. So as Melissa mentioned earlier, she's a life and business coach for women building businesses, and her business is Avanti Creative Group. She is an expert at helping women build confidence, strong marketing and sales skills, and she serves her clients through one-on-one coaching and her signature online course where she teaches a marketing system that she developed. She's also a sought-after speaker and writer, passionate about helping as many women as possible achieve their impossible dream of building an extraordinary business. A lot of what she teaches and coaches stems on what she's learned as an entrepreneur for the last 20 years. And she's founded numerous internet and tech companies before founding her current company in 2005. 15 years ago this month, actually, she founded the Avanti Creative Group. And before that, she earned an MBA in marketing from Hofstra University in New York. Melissa is also a wife and mother to 2 children and her golden doodle, Ginger. And she's also a huge ice hockey fan and gets her girl time playing on an adult women's hockey team called the Hot Flashes. So with that, Melissa, I'm going to pass it back over to you. Thank you for moderating today and for being the inspiration for this amazing summit that's brought together the Northern Colorado community in times of uncertainty. And thank you also to the panelists. So Melissa, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Allison. Thanks for the introduction. That was so sweet. Thank you. All right. So I am so excited for this discussion because not only is it so important, but I think it's really, we are kind of in new territory. And so some of the discussions we're going to have today, I think, are going to be brand new, talking about what we've seen happening in our own lives, in our businesses, and our clients. And so I'm really thrilled to get to introduce the panel. First, we have Becky Lauridsen, and she is a licensed professional counselor and founder of IOME. It's an IOME instead of an IOU, offering guilt-free self-care by partnering with local businesses to provide quality self-care services and products at a discount. Becky is crazy passionate about creating guilt-free self-care and overcoming the mental health stigma. Becky is also a wife to a handsome cowboy and a mama to 2 beautiful girls, Briar, who's 5, and Bristol, who's 16 months old. Welcome, Becky. And next we have Dr. Kathryn Plummer. She's a registered naturopathic doctor and a licensed massage therapist in Colorado. She uses her knowledge of natural medicine to support and inspire her patients to cultivate health in mind, body, and spirit. With expertise, she guides her patients in making healthy food and nutrition decisions while assessing the need for lifestyle changes, nutritional and herbal supplementation to find the root cause or causes of disease and build health and vitality. And welcome, Dr. Kathryn, Dr. Plummer. We're so happy to have you. And finally, we have Zach Mercurio, Ph.D. He is the best-selling author of The Invisible Leader, Transform Your Life, Work, and Organization with the Power of Authentic Purpose. Zach specializes in purposeful leadership, meaningful work, and designing positive organizational cultures, and has worked with and advised leaders in global companies, nonprofits, K-12 schools, and universities around the world. Some of his clients have included the National Park Service, Caterpillar, the Ghirardelli Chocolate Company, Crocs, and the Alzheimer's Association. His work has been featured internationally in media outlets such as Forbes, Inc. magazine, Psychology Today, the Huffington Post, and Thrive Global. Zach earned his PhD in Organizational Learning and Performance and Change right here at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, where he serves as an instructor, researcher, and honorary fellow of psychology in the Center for Meaning and Purpose. Welcome, Zach. We're so excited to have all of you. What an amazing group, right, you guys? So I wanted to just kick things off this morning. And as we mentioned earlier, you are welcome, our audience, to begin putting your questions in the Q&A box. I already see questions coming in. So I just encourage you to continue putting those in, because like I said, we are here for you. If you have any comments, you can also put them in there as well. But I wanted to just start off because, like I was saying, these are such uncharted waters for many of us, and we're feeling like they're uncharted waters with our lives, our work and home lives being blurred even more, the stress around finances and the uncertainty of when our kids are going to go back to school, and all the things that roles we're now balancing. So I wanted to just talk a little bit. I wanted each one of us to have a chance to talk a little bit about our journey over the last, I guess it's been 6 weeks now since the middle of March when everything really closed down. And I'll share first, and whoever's willing to share kind of about their journey. I would love to hear kind of the stages that you've gone through. I wrote about this a little on my blog, but for me, I started out in the middle of March, which I have my birthday, my husband has his birthday, and we had a big party planned. We had 60 people coming to the house, and we had to cancel the party. So I was very upset about that. But the reason we had to cancel is because I got sick, and I have no idea whether I had coronavirus or not. They wouldn't test me, but anyway, so I had to cancel my party. I was sick, everything was closing down. I was feeling sick. I was feeling mad. I was in denial that this was actually happening. We thought all the way till the 11th hour, no, we're not canceling our party. And then we did. And then, a week or two later, when school was canceled, I was feeling overwhelmed. I never in a million years thought I would be homeschooling my kids. So I had lots of that, just feelings of overwhelm. And then my husband works in professional sports, and his season that he works with that got canceled or suspended. And so, there's a lot of uncertainty there with his job and finances, and he's fine, by the way, fully employed, and so everything's good, but there's still a lot of uncertainty. And so I kind of felt like I was in a cave for like those first 2 weeks. And through that time and just letting all those emotions roll through me, getting a lot of coaching, I finally figured out, I came to a point where I had to make a decision of how am I going to let this whole period in our lives affect me? How do I want to come out of it? And so I really learned so much more that really the decision for how we can't always change our circumstances, but we can, change our thoughts and our feelings around them and actually affect how, we come out of it. And so that's kind of at the point I am now. And that was really the spark that led to us coming up with this virtual summit. And I really felt that it was important to just make that active and up-level every part of my life through this. And so, it's a work in progress. I have ups and downs. I don't know about you guys, but I would just love to hear from each of you what your experience has been like so far, because I'm sure our attendees, everyone here in the room will relate a little bit. So Kathryn, do you mind sharing?
Did I unmute?
Yes, you did.
This is my first Zoom thing, so yay. Okay. Yeah, it's been, I don't know what to say. I'm so tired of, these are uncertain times, these are challenging times, trying times. I'm so sick of it. I could hardly stand it. But it's true, it's very different. I'd love to talk a little bit later on about how I really view this as a revolution. But basically, our practice has been deemed essential. So we've actually been coming to our clinic here every workday since this happened. So we're available for telephone consultations from our patients, helping them through this. We're also able to keep them on all their herbal formulas, just doing curbside pickup. It's actually backdoor pickup, but whatever. And it was hard because I'm not, I want to give people optimism, and I also want to be real. the reality was, yeah, we had to, go through all the application process for the loans and the grants. And that was exhausting, trying, frustrating, as well as really, I need financial help. I haven't needed financial help for this whole time. I've been in practice 17 years. And so that was, that was, I have to be humble and say I need help. So that was hard. But once you get through that, and then you realize, wow, I actually in 17 years have not taken a sabbatical. And it's suggested for professors or anybody in the academia world, and also anyone in the healthcare world, to have a sabbatical every 7 years. So, gee, George, I'm pretty overdue for this forced sabbatical. And it was forced, but, and you go through the emotions of, expletive. I didn't want this, but it's also bringing in, boy, I was actually really burned out. Not that I didn't love the medicine, not that I didn't love absolutely all of my patients, everything that I do every day, but I was tired. Our practice didn't convert very well to this Zoom and telephone society that we have now, because our patients want treatments, they want touch, they want hugs. And that is how we thrive in our practice. But it didn't convert very well, and that's fine. We're just realizing what we really do well. And that's what the burnout felt to me was. I'm sleeping more. I slept 10 hours a night, took naps, stared and counted clouds. And I realized, working too hard to try and carry all of these people, carry their emotions, was too much. And I love what I do so much. And that really came through in this too, is knowing how beautiful this medicine is, how beautiful holistic thought as well as practices. And what I also did was realize I have a to-do list for home and also for the clinic, 3 miles long. I actually started in on that. I never have time. I'm seeing patients, I'm writing charts, I'm calling back patients, I'm taking care of them. I never had time to update my website. Well, guess what? I did it. And to clear off my desk, it's amazing. I have a desk. I didn't know. I thought I had piles of paper that floated. It's pretty cool to know that I actually have a desk. It's been pretty interesting. It has cleared my head. It has cleared my heart. And it's also going to set us up for hitting the ground running when we open our practice on the 12th. Yes, we'll be wearing masks. We're requiring everyone to wear masks. And it might be weird to get acupuncture or massage while wearing a mask. Too bad, it's how it is. But I feel as if this was almost a beautiful time, if we can not think about the finances, not think about craziness. It's been a beautiful time to really reconnect with myself, my practice, and I'm excited to bring that forward into my practice forthcoming. Before you think of me as a Pollyanna, I already told you that, we applied for loans, so finances have been a little slow, and I've had family affected by COVID. So don't think that I'm just saying it'll all be hunky-dory, it's all chocolate and flowers. It's not. And we can come through this. So that's what I've got to say. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Becky, would you like to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I can echo a lot of what you already explained, Melissa, and you as well, Dr. Plummer. But I think for me, I had the same roller coasters. I'm so grateful that IOME was fully established and we were up and running, and we do a lot of telehealth appointments prior to all of the pandemic really coming into light. And so I was really grateful that I had already made these connections. I had already figured out a lot of those technical concerns. So then when our clients really needed us, we were able to show up. Personally, though, I was a mess, from wanting to control things that were out of my control, right? And having to admit that, and having to set aside my pride, set aside that humility, or bring in that humility to be able to know that there's just certain things that I couldn't control when I had plans, and plans didn't come to fruition, right? Even my personal plans, obviously my business plans as well. I think within those first couple of weeks, I really suffered from compassion fatigue, because I was dealing with my own emotions, but in fact, I was really putting those aside, and I wasn't addressing what my own mental health care needs were. I wasn't addressing my own self-care needs, because I had so many of my clients and in our different relationships, doing presentations with different employers and whatnot. And so I was recognizing that I was really suffering from my own compassion fatigue. And that was a huge pivot for me. Once I started to realize that, then I could start to increase my self-care, increase my mental health care needs. And then I was able to be more present with my clients and not have those consequences of compassion fatigue. And that was a big aha moment for me. And that was really when I was able to start to recognize what I have control over and start to do what I was always preaching, right? Talking to my clients about. And then I was finally looking in the mirror and being able to help myself in that time. So I'm very grateful. We have been busier than usual because of what we offer, what we do. And so for that, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that my husband's job has still been good, just some of those things that really I think we take for granted, and it has shed some light on being appreciative of what we do have and the quality time that I do get with my girls, although I am not a homeschool mom, let me just say that. And so there's just some of those things that I'm learning, and then the next big pivot for me was being able to admit that I couldn't do it all, right? I couldn't be the homeschool mom, the stay-at-home wife, the business owner, the counselor, the therapist, all of these things. I couldn't do it all. And I was able to have some help with my kids, because that was the piece that was lacking the most. And that wasn't their fault. They needed, it was more of that humility to be able to help them out. Because it's good for them, and obviously it was good for me to be able to have more of that time. But so those were some of those pivotal moments for me personally and professionally. I am feeling much better now, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today, because I think maybe a beautiful silver lining of everything is more mental health awareness, more self-care awareness, and those are my soapboxes, and I will be able to talk about them even more now, which is good, which is a silver lining.
Thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
How about you, Zach?
Yeah. So for me, I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I was in the parking lot of their daycare, and I was getting message after message after message of clients canceling work with me. A lot of my work is in-person group work with companies, organizations, groups of people over long periods of time. And so I got about 50% of my business wiped out in about 3 hours on a Friday afternoon. And I felt like I could feel like I was having a panic attack. And I was like, what am I going to do? I've always been able to fix things in the past. I just want to fix things right now. And I remember I looked up at my clock, and it was 5:30, and I had been sitting in this parking lot to get my kids. And I was like, I got to go inside and get my kids. And I went in to my 2-year-old's daycare room. And he came running up to me and gave me this huge, I felt like it was an extra long hug. And he wanted to show me his frog he finger painted, which was just like a green blob. But he wanted to show me his frog he finger painted. And I started thinking, he doesn't know about my lost revenue. He doesn't know about the keynotes that I lost or those workshops. And I realized, as someone who studies purpose and meaning in work and life, I realized that over time I had hinged my identity on the things that I did, on what I did and what I got for what I did. And as soon as the floor dropped out, I was left with this emptiness of, who am I? And I think that what I realized is that we have these ways of doing things, of activities, and a lot of entrepreneurs, we can judge our worth based on what we do and what we get for what we do. And we forget to think about who we are. What do we value? why are we here? What do we want to leave behind for people? What is our legacy? Those are all the questions I ask, which I always say, you always teach what you need most. And so after that moment and really going through, I kind of just like, I had to stop thinking about it. So I just really focused on my kids and realized that like getting begged to go on a wagon ride midday is not a distraction. It's life. That's what life is. And but then I started doing some reflection on some of what we know about resilience and some of the things that I teach about resilience. And one of those is that it's a developmental trajectory. Like, we don't thrive despite our challenges. We thrive precisely because of them. And I had to ask myself then, when have I had this challenge before, and what did I do well to move through it? Because everybody on this call, you're here right now. So you've moved through change at some point in your life. And so I had to really start thinking about those positive things that I did well to get out of the shaming that my business wasn't resilient enough, or that my clients didn't need me anymore, or that I was getting canceled, all that stuff we can heap on ourselves. I started having to think about, well, what have I done well in the past to move through change, and really lean into those strengths and those things that are good. And that's what, when we talk about positive, I like that Dr. Plummer and Becky and others, it's not about that everything is great, but it's about the fact that we have positive resources we can tap into to move forward productively instead of taking a path of limitation. And so that's what I've been really digging into.
I love that. That's awesome. And I would love to hear more as our discussion goes about what you've seen with leaders. But speaking of leaders, I was thinking, Becky, you talked about compassion fatigue. And I think many of our managers, business leaders, entrepreneurs on this call may be also experiencing that compassion fatigue. So maybe if you can talk a little bit more about that and how to kind of see, put a voice to that. And then what do we do about that if we think we are?
Absolutely. Yeah. So this is something that we experience anytime, with or without a pandemic, with or without job loss, financial strains, homeschooling, anything. We can experience this compassion fatigue, the burnout, just the emotional exhaustion. And so I usually speak on this, but then you throw in a pandemic and it's going to be whole nother topic. So I think that it really boils down to the mission of what IOME does, and that's offering self-care and making sure that we are consistent and utilizing quality self-care, because it's that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as moms, dads, family, friends, we're being asked to pour out probably more than we've ever been before. And our cups are more than likely empty. And I know that was exactly what happened to me once I started to experience the side effects from that compassion fatigue. And I know each of us are going to look very different in that. But for me, it was irritability. It was lashing out at my kids for the things that wouldn't bother me normally, right? Like, wouldn't bother me at all. It was leaning on self-medicating, whether that was more food, less food, alcohol, whatever that looks like for each of us. So these are some of my warning signs that I was fully aware of. And that was that aha moment of, I need a little reality check here, right? My cup is empty and I am feeling that compassion fatigue. What can I do to fill my cup? And so then that's when you have to really identify individually, what do you need to fuel yourself, right? And I want to, and I may just say it now, but there's a huge difference between self-care and self-indulgence. And I know there's a lot of, self-care has its own little stigma, and so does mental health, but that's our purpose, is to overcome that stigma, because self-care, quality self-care, are the things that are going to add value to you, that are going to energize you. It's the things that are a little more challenging, right? Like waking up an hour early to have quiet time and work time before the kids wake up. That's challenging, but it's adding value. Then there's self-indulgence. Those are the quick fixes, the instant pleasures, the binge watching Netflix all day, scrolling mindlessly on social media for hours. Yeah, sure, they feel good in that moment, drinking that extra glass of wine. those are good in the moment, but they're not adding value. And in fact, they're draining you, right, over time. And so that's when we really have to increase that quality self-care. So that way we're putting that into our cup, because I even want to take it further, because I think that each morning we wake up with an empty cup. Okay. And we get to decide what we put into our cup, whether that's going to be quality self-care, right? Respect, love, hope, confidence. Then the second, which is going to be quick, the second that we get asked to pour out to whoever it is, then that's what we get to pour onto them, right? Or we can choose to wake up and put in our cup frustration, negativity, doubt, fear, limiting beliefs, right? Low self-esteem. And then what happens when we're asked to pour out to other people, when we're asked to give, that's all we have to give to them, right? And so there's a direct correlation there. So if I can just echo enough for all entrepreneurs, all women, men, moms, dads, whoever, I really think it's everybody. If you can make sure that you increase that quality self-care, that can help prevent the compassion fatigue and the burnout, no matter how many hours you're working, right? Because maybe you don't have that, you can't control how often you're working or how many hours or how intense that work is, but you can control how much more quality self-care you bring into your life.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So we do have a question. Speaking of fatigue, we have a question from the audience about what are your thoughts regarding dealing with Zoom fatigue, i.e. replacing face-to-face and in-person conversations. Zach, maybe you would like to speak to that. Dr. Kathryn, you haven't done much Zoom, so how about Zach maybe can speak to that a little?
Yeah, I have Zoom fatigue. I'll admit it. I actually have technological fatigue with Zoom. Like, I'm used to just doing things with people, but not having in the back of my head, like, is my internet working? Is my mic working? Is anybody on the call right now? And so that uncertainty is really difficult. And I think that one of the things that we have to remember when we're on Zoom, and I talk about purpose a lot, is why we're having the meeting, and really thinking about that. One of the things that I found in my own life is that last year I had this really bad habit where I'd get up in the morning and I'd look at my phone and I'd be like, what do I have to do today? I think we always do that, right? It's like, what do I have to do? If you took your thoughts and made them a motivational speaker, that wouldn't be very empowering for your day. Hey, what do you have to do today? That's what our phone almost screams at us. And I've started now in the morning, I just try to reframe that and just ask, hey, how is what I'm going to do today going to affect another person? So I was getting I'm an introvert too. So Zoom is like, and I'm a little awkward. So Zoom and introvertedness and awkwardness is not a good combination. But I was starting to get my Zoom calls and I was like, who can I affect on this meeting right now? Like, why am I having this meeting? What do I want these people who are going to be walking away from their computer thinking and feeling as a result of me and my work or my input into this? And I started just thinking about that. And am I extracting from energy or regenerating energy from that call? And some of those things were empowering to start taking control for the way others experience me on Zoom. And I started to feel a little bit of a challenge and a responsibility. And like with the motivation, research finds that we become motivated when we know how what we're doing is significant. We know how it contributes to a bigger whole, and we can use our strengths to do it. So maybe have some fun with this and think about what's something you're really good at in everyday conversations and how can you bring that to Zoom. Or I will make one point. It's kind of I'm not trying to be snide, but if it was a phone call before this time, it could still be a phone call, so maybe not schedule everything as a Zoom call if you can help it. And those would be my tips.
I love that idea that if it doesn't have to be a Zoom call, maybe, it doesn't, because, you can put your earbuds in and go sit out on the porch in the sunshine and take a phone call.
Exactly. And if that's a preference for you, like, speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
We often don't do that enough. I think that we don't share our preferences enough. Like, hey, that Zoom doesn't really work for me because I have kids running. It's like lunchtime and there's kids like asking me for lunch. But I could talk on the phone. Would that work? And you can take some ownership over how you craft your work life. Often I think we think we're passive recipients of our work lives, but we can be active constructors of it. in that way. So that's a great point. If you don't feel comfortable on Zoom, try saying that. And if you can, if you're in an environment that allows that.
Yeah, I love that. Very good. So Dr. Plummer, Zach talked about how, how we're communicating now with Zoom and so forth is a real energy drainer. And, we're having a lot of the Zoom fatigue and so forth. And we know that nutrition is one of our sources of energy. And so I would love to hear from you, how can we support some of these or counteract some of these energy drains that we're feeling from our environment with nutrition, and or supplementation, if you have any thoughts on that, or how you've been working with your clients on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, because I've told a lot of patients, this is an excellent time. You're not doing anything else. You're not running kids to soccer or whatever. This is a great time for you to make those nutritional changes that you've always said, I don't have time for, or I don't know how to cook, or whatever. Kind of, but it's also a really stressful time. And so it's hard to say, let's make some new changes. Or I guess that's redundant, new and changes. But anyway, let's make changes. And so, yeah, it's time. And I've had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, this is great. I have the time to spend to really figure out those new recipes. Or, the grocery store only has broccoli. It has nothing else. So I'm going to figure out how to eat broccoli and make 17 recipes with broccoli. While it's also really stressful. So this has been a strange time. So do I talk to people about making changes and helping them with their diet? Or do I say, chill out, this will be over soon, and then we'll look into it? So you've got the time now, but also not really the support, and also not the, maybe if you can't go to the grocery, or you get what you get from delivery. This is kind of a tough time. That being said, like what Becky was saying with compassion fatigue and going towards the empty care of the bottom of your tequila bottle, or the empty care of chocolate, or eating too much. It's easy to go towards that. So if you can, after you have done your breathing or your dance off, or whatever you're doing to release some of this stress, look into some nutrition. You will always feel better when you have eaten better. Always, across the board. I don't usually say always, but this is that's pretty cut and dry. You will feel better for a moment. That dark chocolate that I have here that I get a square of now and then, boy, do I feel great for 15 minutes. But if you could actually feel great throughout, so a nice slow burn of good whole food, it would be great. So I don't know how you want me to talk about this, give you recipes or what, but the grocery stores, they're out of toilet paper, or it's coming back now. They can be out of frozen pizzas. They're out of canned food. Well, what about really more nutrient dense food? Look at the produce. Usually, especially now, the grocery stores they're burdened with produce. Organic produce, that's where I go, even to Safeway, organic produce is there. It looks great. Get it, eat it, yum. So if you didn't have time to cook before, now you do. I'm not saying don't go for the sudden pleasure of, oh my gosh, I don't even know the brands of the frozen pizzas. I'm such a nutrition nerd. I home cook every meal. But if you can, eat well. Yes. And maybe stretch out a little bit to not just if I can, but do. Make a point of, okay, tomorrow. Can't handle it today. I'm still having some trouble today. I'm in the nervous wreck day today. Fine. Plan on tomorrow. Tomorrow for lunch, you're going to make a salad. And in that salad, you can put cucumber, pepper. I hate to say tomato because I never buy store-bought tomatoes. They're gross. But you can put in whatever you want. Shred it, dice it, cut it up, whatever you want to do. So tomorrow's lunch, you have salad. And look at that, you have done so good for you. Now a salad, you might think, I'm going to want my chocolate or my tequila in 30 minutes because the salad doesn't last. Well, you make it what I call a heavy salad, which is add nuts, seeds, avocado, hard-boiled egg, last night's, whatever last night's meal was, cut it up, put it in your salad. You don't have to have exciting dressing. You can put oil and salt on it. There you go. Not any gross cooking oil. Make it olive oil, sesame oil, good oil. And there you go. Already easy peasy. You've had one great meal and you've had nutrient dense food.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That makes such a big difference. I know for myself, if I eat regularly, I feel so much better. So there's a question that I'm going to throw out. We'll start with Becky. Just asking if you would share a few tips that have helped you with your mindset and even with tips for self-care too, possibly, Becky?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is always my struggle, is because it's so important to recognize what works for you individually. So I will totally share what works for me, and maybe it's a good idea for you, but I don't want to encourage you to do the comparison game either, right? Looking left and right. So just make sure, I'll give some ideas, but you really need to recognize what works for you with self-care in general. And then of course with mental and mindset and some of that mental health there is also. So I think Zach, you mentioned it before, just recognizing how have you dealt with these kinds of things in the past. We've all been stressed out before. We've all been in financial concern. Well, maybe not all, but right. We've been in these concerns before. We've had life changes before. So how did you deal with those? What were some of the negative side effects, right? Like for me, it's the irritability, it's the short-tempered, it's the self-medicating, the desires to, right? What were your side effects from that? What were your symptoms? And then recognizing what worked for you, right? What helped you get through that time? And then sometimes even just as important, what didn't work for you? what completely set you back? Or, hey, you tried to do this, you tried to do XYZ, that didn't work. That's okay. Now you know. I think it's just as important to know what doesn't work as it is to know what does work for you. So self-awareness, I think, is going to be critical when it comes to working through what we're dealing with right now, is knowing your triggers, knowing your symptoms from any kind of stress we're facing right now. I'll just use stress as a very umbrella term because I know it's so different for each of us. So I think that's going to be critical. So then once I am aware of what I am dealing with, right? So for me, some of my symptoms are intrusive thoughts. So when I lay down in bed and I'm trying to go to sleep, get that rest, which is so important, then it's all these intrusive thoughts of the what ifs and the should I's, and the fear and the anxiety just comes in to kind of overload, right? And it just shuts me down. So one of my mindset tricks, I guess, is to acknowledge that, right? Because if I was to tell you, don't think about an elephant, right? What are you going to think about that elephant? And so instead, labeling or to name whatever it is that's going on, right? So when those intrusive thoughts come in of like, what happens if my husband gets laid off? What happens if the kids don't go to school? What happens, right? Then you can just say, okay, brain, I hear you. I recognize you. I know you're trying to protect me, but back off. And sometimes, I know it sounds so silly, but sometimes just recognizing that and saying it out loud, or at least just in your own thoughts, can really give you power and can take that control back over. And then you recognize the fear. You say, okay, brain, thank you. I hear you. Now identifying your truth, right? And whatever that looks like. I'm a faithful woman, so I can say like, God's got this, but whatever works for you in those times, right? Your truth is that right now, today, you are safe, you are healthy, your family is safe, your family's healthy. That's your truth that you're going to hold on to. taking it further to what do you have control over? That's your truth, right? Versus what you don't have control over, right? Those facts versus the fears. So some of those mindset tricks for me can be really helpful. I'm sure I can go on and on, but I definitely want to give some room for the other panelists to talk as well. So yeah, so that's just one of the tricks that I do to just try to challenge those intrusive thoughts that I think we could be facing.
Thank you. I love that. Thank you, Becky.
Mm-hmm.
Zach, do you have any tips?
Yeah, I have also talked to my thoughts as well, being like, hey, calm down, you know, it's okay. And I think that takes a lot of practice. That can also be, you know, I never thought about it. Dr. Plummer said, you know, learning like a new habit, like a new mindset in a time that's difficult can be an overwhelming task in itself, especially for people who like have like habit trackers and stuff, and they're really into that. And then the key is to start really small. I've noticed this with myself, like little moments in which you can stop, even name an emotion, and just wait a few minutes before you act on it. One of the things that I find is that I will act like Becky was talking about. I'll snap at somebody because I'm actually acting on the emotion of fear and anxiety. Like I was fearful just before that. And so I lashed out because I was fearful. And experiencing negative emotions is normal. It's good to create space for those. The problem is when we act on those negative emotions or make decisions with those negative emotions, because what happens is we get ourselves into a vicious cycle. And I've found myself in this place where you experience fear or anxiety, and then you act on that fear and anxiety, and then you actually deplete your resources, your relationships, your understanding, your positive self-worth, your self-concept of yourself. You deplete the very resources that you actually need to respond to the original thing that was causing you fear in the first place. And so we get into this cycle of acting on negative emotions, which deplete the resources we need to respond to the thing that's stressing us out. I see this in organizations. Melissa had asked with leaders, something I'm noticing with leaders. I notice leaders doing a lot of reacting, and trying to make the pain go away, fix it, hunker down, and reacting based on unproductive instincts versus creating the space to respond productively. And so one of the things you could do is just before you're about to act or respond to anything, ask yourself, what emotion am I feeling? Like if I were to name it. An example is like, you could just do this in everyday life, like with email. Like what I have to do is if an email angers me, I have to just stop and I have to say, I'm really angry right now. Is my response going to extract from that person's energy or regenerate it? Is it going to create an upward spiral for me or a downward spiral for me? And some of those tips can be really effective. The second thing is something I mentioned really early, is that recognize that you are good enough. You're good. You have good things about you. If you're on this call, you've made it through a lot. We tend not to think about this question: what do I do when I do what I do well? What are those things that I do? And latch onto those things. And then also create a vision for what's possible after this. I mean, what could be possible as a result of this? And I think that gives a bigger vision to pull yourself through and give yourself some self-confidence, and also the confidence that comes along with knowing and just naming your emotions that can often drive some unproductive behaviors.
That's awesome. Yes, Dr. Plummer.
I would love to add on to that. Becky and Zach, you're saying name it, and I love that. I often tell my patients, we think that it's just us up here, but it's not. We've got a committee. And who's in charge right now? Is it joy? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Is it anger? Is it, whatever. We all have committees, and, naming the emotion is wonderful, helpful, healing, and then you can proceed to act with integrity. Maybe the situation does call for some irritability or anger, who knows? But if you are heartfelt and mind-felt acting, then that's different than reacting. So that's wonderful. But yeah, know your committee. it's kind of a lot to deal with, but heck, if you've got time on your hands, maybe you could talk to your committee, maybe even name them, you know, Susie, John, whatever, you know, Debbie Doubter, who knows? But if you know and name the emotion and coming from that committee member in your brain, it is so amazingly helpful. So then, you know, you yourself and you who should be wearing the crown and making the decisions as captain, you can acknowledge and validate all those emotions because they're all valid, and then make a, you know, a wise, heartfelt decision from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Could I add one thing, Melissa?
Absolutely.
Because the other thing we didn't necessarily talk about is what I'm finding with leaders that I'm working with, and I'm not trying to stereotype, but especially men, is that what they're trying to do is just hunker down and fix it, right? Instead of looking outward and saying, I need help. Like, can somebody help me? And I think we're talking a lot about internal things, but I think positive emotions also expand our attention and expand our view of who's around us, instead of just narrowly focusing on survival, which is the function of fear, anger. We can expand our attention, and often that leads to us being able to say, I need help. You know, I've been saying to clients that I'm working with, the bravest thing you can do right now is ask for help from your people, the people around you. And that's really hard to do. But even me and my wife, like I was blowing up. Like I was getting so mad I couldn't do work, all this stuff. Like my whole way of doing was just obliterated. And I had to just say, like, I'm feeling really angry, and it's because I'm really anxious about my business and I'm anxious about my finances. And that conversation took me about a week to summon up the ability to have, and I had what Brene Brown calls a vulnerability hangover the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But it transformed really the relationship. So I would say look outward as well as you're looking inward.
That's a great point. And even on that, when we're thinking about leaders, and we're all leaders in some capacity, whether it's in our business, in our community, even just in our home. Zach, we talk a lot about cultivating purposeful organizations. And, you know, what is some of your recommendations for us as leaders in how we're communicating with our teams? And
yeah, and so when we look at the research on leadership in crisis, there's two things that typically come to mind when we look at leaders who have led well through really difficult crises. And the first is brutal honesty. So this is something that's really hard. Like I think Dr. Plummer talked about it. Like this is hard. There are things that are keeping me up at night as a leader. And being brutally honest that this is going to be difficult. And at the same time, it sounds paradoxical, but at the same time, offering credible hope. So cultivating hope, optimism, resilience, and a belief that we can do it, all those things together form this idea called positive psychological capital, the things that we need to thrive as human beings. And you can do that at the same time as being honest, but you have to tell the truth first. And telling the truth is what builds trust. So for leaders, there's a couple of things that you could do. If you haven't yet, I would invite your stakeholders to, whether it's a virtual meeting or if you don't want to do Zoom, you can do a conference call. I would make a list of the things that are keeping you up at night, the things that you're worried about them, the things that are bothering you. And I would tell those to your team and say, these are the things that I'm struggling with. And then ask them, do you have any suggestions? Can you help me? I worked with a client who was laying people off, so nervous about it, wanted to delegate it out. And I said, let's have a meeting with the people you're going to lay off and ask them how we should do it. Because that type of vulnerability, you get people involved. You liberate the wisdom of your stakeholder world. You don't hunker down. Leaders, entrepreneurs have such a difficult time giving up authority. You know, I've made it here, I can make it anywhere. Such a difficult time like giving up authority, and use the wisdom of the people around you. And then it's just those other things like organizations are individuals who organize. So what have we done in the past that has made it through this? What are our strengths? What are people's strengths that can help you make it through and move through change? And then really remember your purpose. So not just how are we going to get through this? But make sure you're answering the question, who needs us to get through this? Because we do know that when we have an object of behavior that's outside of ourselves, it can pull us forward. And that's where we start getting into change leadership and not necessarily change management. And I've been saying this, that people aren't going to remember you for the flow charts, the financial projections. They're going to remember you for your empathy and your truthfulness and your compassion. And so those are a couple of things that come to mind for me.
That's awesome. That's quite revolutionary, kind of radical ideas. I love it. So Becky, in thinking about some of what Zach talked about, brutal honesty plus hope, how can we, is that something that translates well to working within our families as well, with our children? There's a question about how we can engage our children in conversations to help them manage their anxiety, or just talking to them about the stress that we're feeling. How, since our work and our life, home life is all blended, and our kids have a front row seat to what's happening with our work for many of us. What are some of your pieces of advice there?
Yeah, I think echoing exactly what Zach said there is that vulnerability and being willing. I think one of the most powerful words we can say to a kiddo is, I don't know. Because we don't need to have all the answers, and we're not going to, and it's going to do a disservice if we pretend to have the answers and we make up all of these things and we just sugarcoat it. It's okay, everything's going to be fine. But internally, you don't know that that's the truth, and they can pick up on that. These kids they're smart and they're very aware. So I think one of the most powerful things you can say is simply, I don't know, sweetheart, son, big guy, whatever you call your kiddo, I don't know. And I'm trying to help you. How can I help you in this? What can I do to help you? Right? How can I help? I think is the next biggest, most powerful thing you can say to your kids is, how can I help? I'm sorry this is happening. I don't know when you get to go back to school, but how can I help you deal with what we have right now, with the facts, right? With the truth that we're in right now. And then being a model, being a role model to them, right? And this is, again, with or without pandemic, if our kids can see us either being a workaholic and constantly on our phone and constantly giving all day, every day, what do they think that they're going to have to do someday? Is to constantly give. And so if you can help create that balance for your kiddos, where they get to see you also be able to take care of yourself, where they get to see you say, hey, I'm going on a walk, I need some me time, I need my quality self-care. If you start talking like that to them, then by gosh, they're going to do it too. And my kids are the perfect example. I remember having a short of a panic attack. I got pulled over for speeding. It's a whole thing. Anyways, and I would always tell my daughter, right, when she's starting to have these intense emotions, I would say, honey, just take a deep breath. And then I would breathe with her, because it's not just saying take a deep breath and then you're panicked at, she's going to pick up on that emotion. So take a deep breath and then do it with her. Anyways, so I am on this verge of a panic attack, and she says in the back seat, Mama, it's okay. Take a deep breath. Talk to me about it. And then she's doing the deep breaths with me. And that was one of those aha moments that I had, like, whoa, right? I say it and I tell my clients about it all day long, but here it actually came into fruition, and that was really powerful. So I'm passionate about making sure that we can teach our kids that we have to love ourselves, that we have to take care of ourselves, and that it's okay that we're not perfect, right? And it's okay to be vulnerable. So I think if we can translate that message into them, you are doing them such a beautiful service in the long run.
Awesome. Kathryn, I see a lot of head nodding there. Do you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, I sure. I actually think it's all really great. And, it's so funny. I think that all of us tell other people all these things, some version of this all the time. And it's really good. The saying, like, if you're pointing your finger at somebody, you need to breathe. Yeah. Oh, look at all those fingers pointing right back at you, we all need to do these things as coaches or healthcare providers, whatever. And I think, just realizing that we have had a revolution. It's a revolution that was forced upon us, but it's been, you just realize it. Don't try to ignore it. Don't try and sugarcoat it. Realize it. I've been in my brain thinking about this, this virus is a revolution, but it's kind of like a prairie fire. The Native Americans used to set fire to the prairies in the early spring. Was it dangerous? Sure, fire's dangerous. It's also very cleansing. It does kill, just like the virus does. But it also helps to clean off all of the old brush. It takes all of that old brush nutrients, puts it back into the soil. The soil then grows with the new spring growth. So I came up with a bunch of R words. So maybe you can remember them. I think it's fun. But, realize that it's been a revolution. And then also realize that we've got some, you're resourceful. So we can be innovative and resourceful during these times. Great. And we're also resilient. So, I think, Zach, you've come up with that word resilience, and I just love it. I think it's wonderful. It's empowering. It's not sugarcoating. It's not for me. It is, this is happening and we will overcome. And then, rebuild from that prairie fire that's been, charred. Now let's rebuild, and then also rejoice. Look at what has come. Look at what beautiful flowers are now coming up. Let's rejoice in what actually is coming up. Are we there yet? Are we going to still have challenges? Well, yeah. Are we going to still have fear and anger and doubt and whatever? Yeah, but we also have some other things to look at. If we can realize that this has been a revolution, then rebuild and with our resilience. And actually, I wanted to point out, there may be some things that this time, this sabbatical for me, what do you actually like? What is it that you actually like? And this is hard to bring up, so I'm bringing it up so you don't have to. What do you actually like about this time? I'll name a few. It's quieter. I can hear the stream that's near my house, but sometimes I can't hear it because it's loud. I can see the mountains. I can always see them, maybe the first range, and it's a little blurry, but now we can see the second range. The air is clear because there's less people on the roads. I've been able to, like I said, I see my desk now, not a floating pile of paper. What are some things that you actually like, and rejoice in that, and then continue it? Don't want to go back to what was normal, because what was normal sometimes needed to be burned to the ground, charred for that regrowth. So that's what I had to say.
Absolutely. I grew up on a farm, and so yeah, same thing. Every spring we'd burn all the ditches, and so it's definitely, I get that metaphor. So Zach, I wanted to ask you to chime in on how leaders can have some of these types of conversations with their teams and create a space for them to help their employees navigate any issues that they're having, or with their mental health and their mindset, and any recommendations you have around that.
Yeah, one of the problems that happens when we jump into change management mode, like managing the things without understanding and cultivating the human energy to do the things we need to get done, is that we can forget that everybody who works with or for us is a human being with as vivid, complex, and important a life as your own. They're feeling the same things. They're struggling with the same things. And this can sometimes be hard in business when you're like trying to survive, to then say, like, let's think about these things. And I had a client who said to me, I reached out and I said, how is everything going through this? And he thought I was going to talk about our culture work. And he said, I don't have time for the purpose and culture stuff right now. And I said, this is precisely the time for that work with people. So a couple of things that I've seen really are powerful is that when you can, like, if you're in the capacity to one-on-one check in with people, for 15, 20 minutes regularly. That's very powerful. And instead of just saying like, hey, how are you? Really saying, what's been a struggle over the past couple of days for you? What's something you're not feeling good about right now? Or what's something you're really proud of? Or when did you feel like something you mattered here over the last 7 days? Having more intentional conversations that get at the humanity, I think is really important. And then really knowing your people's strengths. Hey, how do you think you can help me as a leader get through this? What experiences do you have? Inviting out the wisdom of your people is really powerful. And then it takes some of that pressure off of yourself, and you develop a community regardless of what level that is. And you can even do this if you're if you're a solopreneur and you work with independent contractors or anybody in your stakeholder world. Schedule some time with them just to talk and get suggestions and really uncover their own strengths, what they're struggling with. You'll be surprised at how far that goes. And it is a practice, right? Saying, how are you? Instead of, how are you? That's the difference right there. And that just takes practice. You have to want and desire to know. And then one of my favorite practices in organizations is called appreciative inquiry. And it's actually focused on thinking about what's possible, what's positive, and what our purpose is. And so thinking about the possible and asking people, what can we do? What can we do better because of this? Like after this, what will we be able to do? And setting that vision is powerful. And I just remembered something I wanted to share. Southwest Airlines, I'd gotten the chance to do some studies with Herb Kelleher and Southwest Airlines, and they posted something on Instagram that I thought was a great example of showing your people a symbol of why you're struggling. Like, why are you stressed out? What's the purpose? And they posted a picture of an empty airplane. Now, for an airline that makes its money based on flying airplanes, they're posting a picture of what would normally be the opposite of success, right, for a business. And what they did is they said, what you don't see here is they're continuing to run at a loss all of their flights, their normal flights. And they say, what you don't see here is the one critical care pulmonologist that's on this flight flying to the West Coast to volunteer for COVID response. That's why we continue to fly. So anytime you can create symbols for your stakeholder community to show them, remember, this is why we're here. This is why we're going to get through this, not just how we're going to get through this. It can be powerful to emotionally commit your people.
That's awesome. Such great advice. I love that. Becky, I wanted to just ask you a question about how we as business owners and leaders and entrepreneurs working in our homes, for most of us now, how can we create good space and boundaries, or is that even important? Or some of your advice, because I know for a lot of us that's a little stressful if we're got the laptop sitting now at the kitchen table and we're trying to do thoughtful work and there's people running around, and that creates another layer, can create another layer of stress. And if you have any suggestions, advice on that.
Absolutely. There's so many little things that we can talk about for sure, but again, I think it sums up to having realistic expectations that you need to be okay with. Either I break down like time management. We typically have a list of things that we need to do, and we feel like we have to do them all, right? Because we're entrepreneurs. It's just kind of embedded in us, I believe. But then to be able to break it down to the do it, the delegate it, and the dump it list. And I think that is really powerful for you in this time. I think it's powerful all the time, but especially this time, to be able to recognize what is realistic, because that's when I had my aha moment probably 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 now, where I had unrealistic expectations that I could have the girls home with me every day, continue to do one-on-one individual therapy clients, build a business, work, just all of these things that I was trying to do on top of normal stuff. That's when I was like, okay, I am giving myself permission to dump some of the things that I would normally do, right? I would normally just be more active, or normally do, I can't think of any examples. Normally I would have my laundry done at a certain time every week, right? I have given myself permission to say, it's okay. Or add on, we're partnered with like Supernatural Eats, right? Where they can do meal deliveries. So I've given myself permission to have those realistic expectations. And I want you to think and sit down and have those same conversations. And so maybe you have a team meeting, right? With your partner, with your family, with your adult, like your older kids, and ask them, what are your realistic expectations? What are your needs? Okay, it's not that important that we do laundry, I don't know, right? I mean, I know we have to do laundry, but if that's not that big of a deal, then great, I'm going to delegate that now, or I'm going to dump that, or I really need help in this area. Just like Zach said, asking for help is probably a critical piece of this puzzle as well. And being okay with that, because this is just a season. We will flourish, and we will go back, we will go forward to normal. I like that better. We will go forward to moving on to bigger and better things from this. And so we can get back to that routine. We can get back to whatever it is that we had to dump at this time or to delegate at this time. So yeah, I think figuring out what that looks like for you, because it is so different, and giving yourself permission to make sure that you are not setting yourself up for failure. Because if you have this unrealistic expectation of doing it all, you're going to fail at that. Nobody can do it all, right? I don't care how great you are at things, you're not going to be able to do it all. So release yourself from that unrealistic expectation.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Anyone else want to pipe in on that? How you've managed the work? You know, I joke that I used to, we used to talk a lot about work-life balance, but we had no idea what work-life balance is until now, right? So if anyone has anything else they want to add to that, we're going to be wrapping up shortly. So if there's any final questions from the audience, we would love to have those come in now. Dr. Plummer, I wondered if you could just talk a little bit to some of the effects that we may be experiencing of the stress and the fear that we've had on the body, and things we might want to watch out for that we really need to be, that show up in the body, that we need to then make sure we are addressing our mindset and mental health. Because I know some of us, we're just go, 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 we can grind, all the day long, and we don't notice that we may be suffering mentally until it shows up in our body. So what might be some of the things that we might want to pay attention to that you've been seeing or hearing about?
Yeah, sure. Actually some of these, they can be really tough. You can talk about symptoms, and I've got a lot of patients who say, I've got this symptom, I therefore have whatever. But if you've got fatigue, it can be pretty much anything from you didn't sleep well last night to you're hungover to whatever, you have the flu. So, but fatigue is one. If you start getting depressed or lackadaisical, you just don't have a job to go to, you're wondering if you'll get your loan, whatever it is, you can actually experience body pain. Mm-hmm. So strange enough, depression for some people shows up only as pain. So what if you're having, like, oh my gosh, my back really hurts, or my, my neck, my shoulders. Look into that. See, is it because you've been sleeping on the sofa, or not moving, not exercising, or is it actually, let's check out, the head work. Are you actually depressed? Mm-hmm. Anxiety can also show up as pain. I've had some people talk about chest pain and think that it's a heart attack, and it may be. I'm not discounting that you should really, get chest pain checked out. But anxiety can come up as chest pain, even radiating down the arm, even, getting into the jaw, numb hands, everything that we know of as symptoms of heart attack actually can be anxiety and panic as well. I'm not saying don't get it checked out, But let's see. So you can actually also not be taking care of yourself. So if you are just at home and you are either feeling too low to exercise, or you just don't know how to exercise, you can actually start getting pain in the body too, because you're not moving. You may not be able to sleep because of anxiety or because you're not exercising. You don't have your normal everyday, I get up, go to the gym, go to work, come home, eat dinner, and then crash. You don't have your regular schedule. So you actually can't sleep as well. So my suggestion would be to, one, what we've been talking about is pay attention and name what you're feeling. And then really, like what Becky was saying, gotta get a schedule. Even if you're not working, get a schedule. You get up, you get breakfast, you do whatever you need to do, have a dance off with your kids, then play puzzle, and then have lunch, and then do more activity. Whatever it is, have a schedule, because you could actually be experiencing a lot of mental, emotional, symptoms in the body as pain. So those are some things to be thinking about.
You bring up the point that I feel like I really need to get out and be exercising more, because I am having pain in places. I think it's because I'm sitting too much and not exercising. So yeah, that's such great points. So we're going to wrap up. We're coming to the end of our session here. Oh
no, I was just going to say, you've probably heard that sitting is the new smoking. That's like the latest cliche. So if we're all sitting on our tushies,
yes, I'm on 3 packs a day by now, I think. So that's such a great reminder. But just as a wrap up, I want to invite each one of our panelists to say a few words, final thoughts, and then I will wrap it up from there. So Zach, would you like to start?
Yeah, I mean, I do keep hearing that we're in uncertain times, but there are no certain times if you're a human being. You can't step in the same river twice. Everything's constantly changing all the time. The illusion we create is certainty and security. Those things are human constructs. And so know that not only will there be uncertainty in the future, that you have the resources to be in an uncertain world, and that's life. And so I just really encourage you to use some of these tools, but not get stressed out by the thought of using some of these tools. Like, just pick one micro action today. Like, say, I'm going to name one emotion today, or I'm going to name one thought today. And that's moving forward. And the second thing I'll say, if you are interested in learning more about this, I do have a newsletter that I send every month. It's called The Spark. It's just about purpose and meaningfulness and how to build mindsets that encourage flourishing and thriving, and some of the practices that I've tried and didn't work and do work, and some of the research there. So you can subscribe at zachmercurio.com and connect with me there. I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you, Zach. Becky?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day to sit in front of a Zoom meeting. Once again, I'm sure you have a handful of those. So we are very grateful for that, first and foremost. And you should be proud that you were able to be part of it. And so I echo what Zach said. I was going to say the exact same thing. In fact, the one thing, figure out, because we just threw a lot of tips and tricks and information at you. And I'm sure if you've watched any of the others, there's a lot of good, incredible information, but sometimes that can be overwhelming, and sometimes we can shut down with that. So pick one thing. And if it was something I would suggest, it would be one thing, one self-care thing that you can do every day. Just wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to go on a 30-minute walk, because that's going to add value to me, right? So one thing that you can do for your self-care, that would be my challenge for each of you that I would strongly encourage. If you wanted to know more about me and about our business called IOME, please go and check out the website. I will send it here in the comments. And we do weekly self-care tips, and they're very simple and short and to the point and tangible, which is really nice sometimes to have just a reminder. And it's anything from drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning to saying your affirmations and committing to those, right? It's so such a variety of different self-care tips. So there is the offer in the website that you can check out more information if you would like to be able to experience that guilt-free self-care that we all deserve. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. Dr. Plummer?
Yeah, echoing the, let's have a theme, do one new thing, or one thing that, that will be helpful for you. I would like to make a list of them though, and kind of just identifying emotions that you may be needing in order to release or channel the stress that you may be having. One is get calm, and that's meditate and breathe. If you don't know how to meditate, if you wonder like why, why do I need to breathe differently? Google it, learn about it, do it. I personally, sometimes if I'm really stressed out, getting calm doesn't help. I need to get angry first, which means, play loud music, sing really loud. And I don't mean angry like yell at people, but, get that angst out. Punch pillows if that's your thing, not mine, but whatever. Also get moving, get exercising, have a dance off, march in place, jumping jacks. Who cares? Get moving. You will feel better. You'll get more blood circulating to your brain. You can also get distracting. So distract yourself if you need to. Play puzzle, play crossword, listen to music, whatever your distraction is. Probably try not to do the empty care of alcohol bottle. Get busy, clean, get to your to-do list, get through it, find a new to-do list, realize that you've got time to do it. And then get planning. Plan what the changes you're going to make to your business and how you're going to implement and how you're going to market to these this new community that we're going to wake up into. But just do one of those. What is it that you need for your body, for your mind? And there you go. So for our sabbatical or shutdown or whatever, we redid our website, so go and check it out, sageholistichealth.com. Lots of articles. We're putting up more and more articles every day, just for information, and it's a lot of good information for you with natural healthcare. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Dr. Plummer. So I just want to wrap up. I know we are coming close to our time here today, and I love this panel and just the positivity, and but it's positivity with rationality, right? We've been honest. We're not sugarcoating, anything. We're not pretending Pollyanna, and we know that many people are having hard times right now. But that's kind of life, right? Life is full of good times and bad times. It's the 50-50 of life. And one thing that I would just suggest everyone consider is that your mind is like a party. And think about the people you want to have in your party and the voices you want to have at your party. And it's voices like we've had here today with positivity and some really great tools and tips. And maybe turn off, some of those voices that are not that and not serving you or not lifting you up. And I know we have to be very vigilant with that these days. So I just want to leave you with that. And again, my name is Melissa Kellogg Lueck, and I'm a life and business coach. And I love helping women to reach their impossible goals, even during pandemic. So if you would like to up-level the results in your business with great marketing and sales, I would love to help you. And you can join my free Facebook group. You can find that at Avanti Creative Group on Facebook. And with that, I'm just going to wrap up and say thank you again to all of our panelists. We just, I think this is just amazing. And hopefully this was helpful to the audience. As far as the replay, that will be available in the Facebook group. We do have another session coming up this afternoon at 12:30, and it's our bonus session. We have assembled all of the economic development officers and directors from the area from Northern Colorado and they're going to be talking about what the local municipalities and the government is doing for entrepreneurs and small businesses during this time. So if that's of interest to you, bring your questions, comments, and we're going to have a lively discussion, I'm sure. But until then, thank you all for being here, and I will see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.